Hey guys, we have a lot to go over today. This is going to be a WCA potential events tier list, which is basically any event that he thought might have a chance. Yeah, he got pretty creative. Whoever made this, like these, some of them are really clever, and some of them I also don't quite know what they are. So let's just start over here at the 2x2x3. Now this one is a cuboid. We currently don't have any cuboids in the WCA, and most of them are pretty easy, especially this one. However, it does have a little bit of complexity, but I don't really feel like it has too much potential. I'm going to put it in the D tier, and just so you know, we also have a lot of tiers here, so you definitely won't have a problem like last time where I had to make new ones. Anyways, we'll just continue with the shapeshifters. Over here is the 2x2x3, which this one was a 2x3x3. And I feel like this one is going to get the same tier because they're both pretty simple. However, this one over here, the 3x3x4, I feel like has a bit more potential, so I'm going to put it in C tier. Okay, now the 2x2x4, this is actually called the domino cube, fun fact. And I feel like this one has the highest potential out of all of them for one main reason. It actually shapeshifts. So if you turn this in half, then you can actually turn the others in half. And I think that's really neat, definitely a defining aspect of it. And I feel like it's going to go in B tier. I still don't feel like it has as much potential as some of the others we'll talk about later, but definitely the highest potential cuboid, at least on this list. Okay, next up is 2x2 blindfolded, and this one is definitely going in S tier right there. So the reason why was that 2x2 is already an event in the WCA. If you want to watch my original WCA event, I'll have it in the eye somewhere up in the right hand corner. But anyways, 2x2 was actually one of my favorite events. And 2x2 blind, there's already 3 blind, 4 blind, and 5 blind. And I feel like, okay, so I was originally against this idea because like people already one look a solve during inspection, but then I remembered that you wouldn't get inspection, so you would have to memorize the cube as fast as possible, and I feel like that would definitely bring a lot of strategy to the table. So it's going in S tier. You can disagree with me if you want. It's perfectly fine. um I don't know what this is. But I'm assuming it turns by its corners like that. If you can kind of make that out somehow, like it kind of turns among these corner pieces, and it feels really big to me. But it'd definitely be an interesting puzzle. I'd probably put it in C tier. Now this one, I believe. Hang on. Yeah, I believe this is a 24-sided cube, which is way too many. Who even came up with this? I don't know what it's called, but it's personally going in F tier for me. um. Anyway, next up are two very high contenders, like as high as 2x2 blind level. Um, the Ready Cube, that's what it's called. It turns by its corners again, but it is so much more simpler than this one up here. And also, it actually did have quite a bit of a following to get into the World Cube Association for quite a bit. But now it's only made by one company, so it's not really as potential. but I still feel like this has lots of potential. Not as much as 2x2 blinds, because 2x2's in the WCA already, but it's definitely going in A tier. But yeah, next up is Killaminx. I did that without looking at a tutorial. And fun fact about that, I looked up a tutorial when I was done, and it did not help me at all. But anyways, this is a so high contender because Megaminx is already a WCA event, and I feel like this would be just so much more quicker. However, there would need to be a hardware improvement, like maybe add magnets to it, make it a bit faster. And one other problem is that this one, you see these centers, they are stickerless, just like the one I have. However, there are some that have these colored stickers, so the WCA would definitely have to do something about that. But even with those, this is still S tier. Oh, and another very, very high contender, the mirror blocks. So these, it actually turns exactly like a 3x3. However, instead of a different color for each side, it would be defined by a different height. And I feel like that would be a pretty neat idea, kind of like how in Square 1, which I talked about in my WCA puzzle, it would definitely, you'd have to, turn it back into a cube for Square 1. However, I feel like this would be a lot easier, also because it doesn't really shapeshift. But yeah, a few problems. One of them is that there's not a defined height for any of these layers. So the WCA would have to make some regulations about that. There's also a few more problems. Like, again, the hardware isn't the greatest currently. But I feel like this is a very high contender. I don't know if I should put it in S tier or A tier. I'm putting it in S tier because the mirror blocks are arguably the most popular non-WCA event out there. Okay, real quick through these big blind events. Okay, so the one I think highest of is Megaminx Blind, and I feel like that would provide a very interesting experience having all 12 sides. You need a new flipping algorithm, that's for sure, to move pieces around. But I feel like that it's still pretty low. I'm going to put it in D tier. Actually, no, E tier. And 6x6 and 7x7 blind are getting F tier. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to Stanley Chapel and Graham Siggins. But anyways, the reason why I think these are so low is because I already think that 5x5 blind is already big enough. It is by far the longest WCA event, besides Fused Moves and Multi-Blind. But these would just be so big. I'm pretty sure 7x7 would take, I don't even know how long. How long is the current record? I don't know. But these are just such big blind events, and they wouldn't really be too potential. If anything, I'd say we should remove 5 blind, but I'm still kind of on the fence about that. But anyways, speaking of big blind, let's talk about big normal. Big open. 8x8 is getting E tier, and 9x9 is getting F tier, because they are, again, super big, and I feel like they'd be still very long puzzles, and I feel like 7x7 is already long enough. It's over 100 seconds. which just imagine how long that'd be. Just 1, 2, 3. Get all the way to 100. And they're still working on it. But 8x8 and 9x9, they just seem too big for me, in my opinion. Next up is this puzzle. I believe it's actually the Kirby Copter. I know this is one of Z3 Cubing's favorite potential events, but it turns by its edges, so like you see this, like it turns like that. I don't know if you can see that or not. Like kind of visualize it turning like that. However, you can kind of turn one side and then turn another side partly, and then you can kind of turn a third side to where it turns like really weird. Like it's called jumbling, and it is just, and it can get ridiculously complicated with the jumbling. So I feel like the WCA would have to make some regulations about that, and also some other regulations that they'd have to avoid as well. Also, this isn't just, it isn't very popular, but it has some potential. I'd put it in C tier, yeah. I'll put it in C tier. Next up is the Ivy Cube. That's what it's called. Now the Ivy Cube is an easier version of Ace Cube, and considering Ace Cube is arguably the easiest event in the WCA, maybe Pyraminx might be easier, but then again Rubik's Clock might be easier. I don't know, but the Ivy Cube is essentially like a cube, but with only half of the corners. The strategy I do believe is different, but still very simple. I am putting it in D tier with the other fairly simple puzzles. Okay, Mirror Cube Blind. I don't know why they added this one, because it's already not a WCA event, but having that blind just seems way less potential. But I still feel like it definitely provides some strategy, essentially, since there isn't really any colors you can go off of, so you would really have to like look at the puzzle a lot like better, if that makes sense. Like there isn't really any colors to go off of, so you'd have to like look at the shape of each color, and like I feel like it'd be like memorizing a square one, which would just be like bananas. But I feel like it has a bit of potential, but the mirror cube would have to be a WCA event before blind. Anyways, Master Pyraminx. No question this is getting S tier. I have one, and I feel like this is such a potential event. Actually, one of the stages, at least the way I do it, is these are the tips, centers, and these middlemost edges are the edges of a Pyraminx. So you kind of solve it like a Pyraminx, and then you solve these little edges afterwards, like these ones here. And then the final stage are these centers. Solving them, because they can move around. Anyways, I feel like this puzzle has a bunch of potential. Because it's like a harder Pyraminx, and just the strategies for it would be really neat. Chi-E has a pretty good speed cube version out there, but there would definitely need to be more contenders for it. But yeah, it's very potential, because it's not like these where some people might say it's a bit too easy. I'd say the Pyraminx is about as difficult as like maybe a 4x4, maybe. But just such a potential event. I'm surprised it hasn't been considered already. Actually, it might have, though. But anyways, one of my personal favorites, S tier. Next up is 4x4 one-handed. I actually did this. This is actually what inspired me to create my solving a 4x4 one-handed video, which I'll also link in the upper right-hand corner, or at least I think that's where it is. Anyways, so 4x4 one-handed. With my 16 minutes, yes, that's how long it took, of experience solving a 4x4 one-handed, it would be very clunky to turn, to be honest. It'd be very weird to turn. Like, the whole time I was just like, huh? Like, what do you do? But, hey, it's better than solving a 4x4 with your feet, and I feel like, again, kind of like 2x2 blind, 4x4 one-handed would have a lot of potential, since 4x4 is already a WCA event. So I'm actually going to put it in A tier, because I feel like turning strategies would definitely be a very interesting thing to do, especially like parody, like OLL parody cases and PLL parody cases. Like, finding one-handed versions of those would just be so interesting, and also like just doing the parody cases. But I feel like very potential. However, I wouldn't say as potential as those other events. Actually, I'm not sure. I don't know. Anyways, this I believe is an 8-sided cube. I don't really know how it turns. I'm assuming just like a normal Pyraminx would. But it doesn't really look too fun. I'm gonna be honest. So I'm putting it in E tier because it just, yeah, it doesn't look fun. This is a 10-sided version, and it looks just about as fun as the other one, which isn't very. But yeah, I just don't really know them quite well, so I'm just putting them in E tier because they just look so unpopular. If that makes sense. Anyways, this is a gear cube. I really don't know how to feel about this. We're gonna move on to the Master Killaminx. This is probably gonna go actually in B tier, because Megaminx is already a WCA event, which is kind of the justification for Killaminx. But also, there's also that reducing this down would be such a neat idea. Like, we don't really have that for like a Megaminx, for like a Megaminx sort of deal. So I feel like having the Master Killaminx, definitely like solving all the centers and then the edges, would definitely provide some strategy. However, it'd also be like really long. So I don't know how to feel about that. And also, I'm pretty sure parody, I don't know if we've gotten a solution for that yet. But I still think it definitely has a bit of potential, so I'm putting it in B tier. And also, I'm gonna put the Gear Cube in B tier also. It's pretty complex to solve this because the centers, I believe, can move, and it's also very confusing. Like if you do a quarter turn, then you can't turn it. However, if you do a half turn, then the middle does one turn. And it's very, very weird. I personally don't know how to solve it, but that's just my opinion. PLL time attack. Okay. This one. Okay, this event. I don't really feel like it has too much potential because PLL is such a short event, and you could probably do it in under a second if you got like something really lucky, like a U-perm or something. But I feel like it'd definitely be a unique experience. So C tier. However, I do have an idea. Last layer time attack, because that'd be OLL and PLL, and also some people could exclusively do this event and learn something like full ZBLL, so when they get across, they can just do it all in one big algorithm. And I feel like that'd be a pretty neat strategy as well, but PLL, not so much. However, so much to this idea. This is such a smart idea. Whoever made this, oh man, you came up with some clever stuff. So re-scramble. I tried doing this on a 2x2, and it was pretty neat. I'm gonna put it in B tier because having to re-scramble, like this is the solution, and the solved is the scramble, and you have to like kind of do like it backwards. And I feel like it would provide so much neat strategy to it. And also, I feel like I'm gonna lower it from like A tier to B tier because I feel like there'd be lots of luck involved. Personally, because like there could be like a lot of solved bars, and you wouldn't have to do as many moves. But that's just my opinion. This, I don't know how it turns. I'm assuming it turns kind of like that. That makes sense. But it is probably going to go D tier. Okay, let me just double check everything. That sounds right. Okay, that sounds good. Actually, no, this is going to D tier. However, last layer, that's definitely going up to like B or A. So yeah, that is my tier list. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please subscribe.